Good evening, everybody. Well, Sumi's got a big smile on my face, thinking back to 1972 with the Carly Simon song "Anticipation." Anticipation, and it's driving me wild. Oh gosh! Oh, thank you, Sumi. Good memories. Um, I just finished basic Indonesian language school at DLI in Monterey, and then I went to school at Goodfellow Air Force Base. And then went to Fort Meade to work for that three-letter agency on the northwest corner of Fort Meade. Wow. Welcome, everybody. Tonight's introduction to Civics, U.S. Government 101. I had put down that we were going to talk about the last two amendments to the Constitution tonight, but we actually covered those last week. But there's so much going on that it gives us an opportunity to take a look at the congressional, at the constitutional excitement that we have going on with those, with some of the things that are going on right now. I tell you what, I am so happy that I am not the person who resides at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now. Oh, a New York Prepper just sent a red alert, U.S. retaliation on, let me see what it says, New York. I have to click on it in order to see what it says. U.S. retaliation on, and then it cuts off. So it says here, real quick. Of course, you get a commercial, and it's not going to give us what the title is. So it says, U.S. retaliation on Iran is imminent. Doomsday plane airborne with transponder off. No, I don't think that means that it's imminent. I think there's an attack imminent. I don't know if. Sometimes even the best intended of people who don't understand the military have a tendency to think that everything is an indicator of one specific thing. It may not be. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got here. Let me see. Breaking news. Let me get rid of that one because I can't read my chat over here on the right with all these announcements of things that are going on. Okay, Prepper Dog is saying new and imminent danger. So let's take a look at what we've got here. We've got, I know for sure Sumi and Scott Hummer, welcome. And gosh, and me. Hi, Lee. Come on. I may have to get my mouse going again here shortly. Diana 2, welcome. Good evening. Scott Hummer again. Little Lone Prepper, Cats and Prepping. Diana 2. Holly Ivans, hi. How are you? Pennsylvania Preparedness, good evening. Welcome. Hey, Triple G Farms, fantastic. Good to see you. Glad you're not out on the road again. He does a lot of traveling and consulting and things, and so sometimes he's not with us all the time, but he's here tonight. We're thankful for that. Celtic Grandma, welcome. Good evening. And gosh, I've seen most of these names too on the videos that I've released the last couple of days. So thank you very much for that. So do me a favor. I am in need of some more moderators. So if you would like, I know Triple G's here, Scott's here. I think I have a couple others here. But if you would like to be a moderator, please send me an email, and we can make that happen and see what we can do there. Let's talk about some three different things that have happened over the course of the last 3 days. So first off, let's talk about all this imminent danger stuff that I'm seeing coming across my screens. Phioxerus, good evening, welcome. So theoretically, we have to have a declaration of war, and this is according to Article 1, Section, I believe it's Article 1, Section 8. It is part of the limited powers, the declaration of war by Congress. And so we're supposed to have a declaration of war in order to go to war. But the last time we had a declaration of war was on December, gosh, let me see, 7th, so the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. I want to say the 11th of December, 1941. And the reason I say that's the last time, Remember that we were attacked by the Japanese on December 7th. Congress met under President Roosevelt on December 8th and declared war against the Japanese. 3 days later, the Germans declared war on us, and then the day after that, we declared war on Germany. And Germany, the Axis powers, basically, Germany, Italy. And so that's the last time the U.S. has made an actual declaration of war. Some interesting things that are going on. Number one, we have never signed a peace treaty, even though we didn't have a declaration of war. We did go to battle as part of the United Nations against Korea from 1950 to 1952. That has never been resolved. That is a ceasefire. That is not a peace treaty. So the armed conflict in Korea is officially still on. We just aren't shooting at each other. We've agreed not to shoot at each other. So there, that's that one. We never had a declaration of war for Vietnam. We never had one for Grenada, Panama, Somalia, the Balkans under President Clinton. Gosh, where else have we been? We've been so many places. It's pitiful. But we have not had a declaration of war since 1941, December of 1941. Isn't that something? That's also the last time we went all out to win one. So we've been doing these little, gosh, I don't know what you call them, sandbox exercises ever since, because we really don't go into anything to win a war. We didn't go in to win in Vietnam. I think, although in Korea, my gosh, one of the reasons why, just one second. One of the reasons why North Korea hates us so intensely is, remember, they drove us all the way down into the Pusan area around the southern tip of South Korea. Then General MacArthur came around and landed at Incheon, simultaneous with the attack going north out of Pusan. And the Koreans say Busan. It's actually a B sound. But anyhow, so we had those two moving together. Then we crossed over. And as we went north into North Korea and all the way to the Yalu River, which is the border with China, we just totally decimated that country. That hardly anything was left standing. Then, of course, the Chinese began the counterattack, and this is where the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir is. And the Chinese pushed us all the way back down. Then we pushed our way all the way back up, and then we got pushed back down again. So that whole area was kind of had war going back and forth over at North Korea 2 or 3 times. And so, artillery and everything else, it was totally just flattened. So there wasn't anything left. And that's why they hate us so much, is because it was just totally flattened. They had to totally rebuild. But so we haven't had a declaration of war since our last one was against Germany in December of 1941. And it looks like we're going to possibly get involved somehow or other. Of course, we got the NATO thing going on in Europe. That is, we've got Russia and Ukraine in their disagreement. And I think Russia's calling it a special military action, taking after us, I guess. And then we have Finland is building bunkers about every 500 yards on their entire border with Russia. We've got Latvia, well, going from the north. It's actually in alphabetical order, if you look at it. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, the 3 Baltic states, are all kind of getting up and they're cutting off their communications, that is land communications, the corridors and access and everything else with Russia. And then you've got the what's the name of the gap? The Kowalski gap? No, it's not Kowalski. It's something else. Anyhow, there's Suwalki gap. Then that's the only place where you have to go across Poland for Russians to get into the exclave of Kaliningrad. That's been sealed off. So the only way they can get in is down through the Baltic. That's about to explode. We've got, of course, the stuff that's going on in Israel against Hamas. And now that's being expanded. Israel against Hezbollah in Jordan. Hezbollah is a real army, I mean, compared to Hamas. So that's going to be extremely dangerous. We've got the Israelis have, as a matter of fact, evacuated part of the northern area of Israel. They've added some doctors. There was a number, I forget what it is. Off the top of my head, I think it's 600 medical staff have been moved up into northern Israel. That number is suspect. That's due to my memory. So just take that with a grain of salt. So they're anticipating that that's going to be an extremely volatile area here in the very near future. So we see that whole Middle Eastern thing happening, and that may be part of what's going on with the Houthis down in Yemen and trying to close the Red Sea. Then we've also got the attacks against the U.S. forces in Iraq and also against the U.S. forces now in eastern Jordan. I mean, that's a very little small horn of Jordan that kind of projects up into Syria on the northwest side and Iraq on the east and northeast side. And then you've got Jordan Tower 22, which is what was hit. And I believe it's 34 critically injured and 3 have succumbed to their injuries. So now we have the loss of U.S. life. So it appears, and you know, there's all kinds of speculation. It's definitely an Iranian proxy that attacked the U.S. forces. But now that we've had 180 some odd attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria, we finally had some casualties. And I think that it may, I don't know, it may be enough for us to retaliate and go do something. So that's that area. So, you know, that ties into that constitutionality type thing of we need to have a declaration of war if we're going to do it, if we're going to hit somebody. Although we did give the War Powers Act as a result of things that happened, especially with the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. What happened there was we realized that all of a sudden intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, and intermediate range ballistic missiles, IRBMs, could hit the United States in 7 to 20 minutes. So if that's the case, and we had to have a declaration of war, according to the Constitution, in order to react, they didn't think there was enough time to get Congress together to vote on it in 7 to 20 minutes. So they came out with a War Powers Act. And basically what happens now is the president can take action against an imminent danger, and he has 72 hours to notify Congress of the fact that he took action. And, you know, that's going to be that. Yeah, the Golan Heights are basically, Sumi, that's basically that area on the northeastern shores, what used to be called Samaria in Israel, and that looks into basically Syria. So yeah, that if you take a look at it, that's kind of like a shelf. Okay, so you've got the Golan Heights are here, and then you have this kind of like a cliff, and then you have the Syrian plain. So it overlooks the Syrian plain, and that's a very strategic area that I don't think the Israelis want to ever give up, because of the fact that they can fire down on the on an attacking force, and the attacking force, you know, it's difficult to fire up through the cliffs to get to the Israelis. Very strategic point. So that's the second one. Okay. Then we have this other constitutional thing going on that the person at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has to be concerned about. Let me see. Let me check our fantastic chats here. Thank you, Scott, for pointing that out. 20 watching, 11 likes. Cats and prepping. Yes, Sumi, the world is. We have lit the fuse on this thing, and it's about ready to blow up big time. Okay. So let's get into this one that's very popular right now, and people are misquoting quite a bit. So for some time now, and especially in the last 3 years, under the Obama administration, we had, well, first off, under the Clinton administration, Obama and a bunch of other people talked about how we needed to have better operational control of the border because too many people were coming across. They were all for that. Everybody's been for controlling the border until Trump did it. Okay. And once Trump started building the fence and getting operational control over the border, and then we elected his replacement, Joe Biden, everything that President Trump did, Joe Biden has done away with unilaterally without the approval of Congress. Okay. He's done it through executive order. So the Remain in Mexico agreement that we had with Mexico, where now remember, international law says that if you are seeking asylum and escaping your country due to oppression, you must seek asylum in the first country you enter after exiting your country. That means every country out there except Mexico has to stop in Mexico, if that's the first country, and apply there. Okay, so that was the Remain in Mexico thing was basically a part of international law. That's what the international law says. But now, because Biden threw away that deal, now they're allowed to transit all the way through Mexico. As a matter of fact, we were supporting the Mexican army who had total control of their southern border because, you know, if they were coming up to the northern border and we were saying, well, you can't come in, that poses a problem for Mexico. So now that we say you can come in, Mexico doesn't have any problem. There's no need for them to filter off the southern border because they're getting income, all these sojourners, let's call them, coming from their southern border to their northern border. So they're making income off these people, eating, housing, whatever the case might be. And so it's not to their advantage. So the Remain in Mexico policy has been done away with. The wall was done away with. Customs and Border Enforcement was doing a great job down on the border. The number of people coming across had been greatly reduced. Drugs and those things were being in the action of being reduced, and it was going in the right direction. Okay, then all of a sudden it came tumbling down, and so Texas and President Biden had a discussion, and he says, well, you know, we need more Border Patrol agents in order to get operational control of the border. Now, remember, this is after giving up on the fence, giving up on everything else. What he's citing right now is because of places like Santa Elena Canyon in Rio Grande, on the Rio Grande in Big Bend, you can't put a wall up there because of the steep cliffs and everything else. He says, well, because of that place, you can't put up a wall anywhere because it's ineffective, which is a totally farcical argument, because there are places where the wall is effective, and there are other places where you need high tech in order to be effective. So you need a combination of a lot of different things. So he said, well, we can't control the border because we don't have enough Customs and Border Enforcement agents, Border Patrol agents. So the state of Texas said, we'll tell you what we'll do. We will send the Department of Public Safety, our state troopers, and we will send our parts of our National Guard down to relieve a lot of the Customs and Border Enforcement agents who had desk jobs and were commissioned so that they could now go out on the line and do their job and protect the border. So we sent our state troopers, we sent our National Guard down, we relieved a lot of the Customs and Border Enforcement agents, and they were supposed to go to the border and gain control of the border. They didn't. They just began processing more and more people faster and faster into the U.S. So we've had this ongoing disagreement. I don't think we're going to have resolution on the border until we come to a definition of terms agreement. It appears that the Texas, and it just so happens the Republicans appear to agree with the Texans, believe that the primary duty of Customs and Border Enforcement is to control the border, so that the people who want to come across only come across at one of the 28 bridges across the Rio Grande, where we have Customs and Border Enforcement offices that are designed to accept immigrants and accept their applications. So that's our interpretation. The president's interpretation is, in my opinion, that the purpose of the Customs and Border Enforcement agents is to process people as quickly as possible to get them into the United States and then disperse them throughout the United States. Now, my personal belief is that what we're looking at is they're hoping to have 10 million more votes. And of course, they're going to have these votes and will be constantly voting for the party that gives them citizenship. And so that's why I think the Democratic Party is fighting for citizenship for these illegals who are coming across the border. A couple of things have happened. So, number one, drugs are just like you would not believe coming across. Fentanyl. I forget, somebody famous's son just recently died of a fentanyl overdose, and he has now switched over and is wants tighter control of the border. We've got sex trafficking as far as minors and things like that coming across. They're being released in the United States. We don't know where they're going. They've lost thousands of minors. So, the whole thing now all of a sudden is coming to a head. So Texas said, look, federal government, you've got to do something. And if you don't, we will. So Texas started doing something. So the federal government sued the state of Texas and said, you can't do our job. Only we have the authority to do our job. You can't do it for us. And Texas countersued. So there's two suits that are moving their way up towards the Supreme Court. And Texas says, oh no, if you aren't doing your job, then we have an agreement called the Constitution where it gives us the authority to do that. So the federal government asked the Fifth Circuit Court to put out, to give them permission to tear down the razor wire that the state of Texas was putting up along the border. And they're also putting up some floating barriers. And so now the federal government is saying that that's causing people to drown. Thank you, Cats and Prepping. You're absolutely correct. It was the Rick something or other from Pawn Stars. Thank you. You guys are so great. So the federal government wants Texas off of the border as far as our National Guard and our state troopers off the border so that they can process people faster. And we're impeding that. Texas wants the National Guard, the CBE, to do their job and restrict people coming into the company wantonly. So there's two different things going on there. So we sued, they sued, then it went to the Fifth Circuit Court, which covers Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. And the Fifth Circuit Court said, you know what? You can't. Oh, no, they said, yes, you can. The first one was, they said, yes, you can tear down the wire. Texas said, wait a minute, we want an en banc decision. Now, when you have something that goes to the Supreme Court or to a circuit court, first it meets with a panel of judges. And the panel of judges, usually 3 judges, makes a decision. So the 3 judges said, yes, the federal government can tear down the razor wire, the concertina wire. Texas asked to have an en banc. That means the entire Fifth Circuit Court meet as one and come up with the decision. Well, those 3 who granted permission to do it were basically overruled by the entire Fifth Circuit Court. And so the entire Fifth Circuit Court came out with the decision and said, no, federal government, you cannot tear down the razor wire. So then the federal government said, well, we're going to take it to the Supreme Court. And that's where the January 22nd order comes in. Let me check on chat here, and then I'll take you to that order, because there's a lot of things people are saying that just are not true. Okay, I want to show you the order, and we'll read it together and see what's going on. Okay. Trying to stay sane, that's difficult in today's world, isn't it? Oh, wow. Where is the UN base, Sumi? Let me see if I can catch that up here somewhere higher. On the Golan Heights, yeah. So I'm reading, and I'll try to keep talking as they do it. Can't seem to stop flogging that one. I keep running into Canadians who look at me in horror that I would move to the U.S. in a hot minute to get out of China to. And I would love to have you down here in Texas, Sumi. We would love to have that. So anyhow, and the Chicago mayor today was really dogging Governor Abbott, saying that all these illegals coming into his city are Texas's fault. No, they're not. If they weren't coming into the country in the first place, you would not have a problem. So we're just trying to keep them from coming into the country. And then we can't have all 8 million here in Texas. They've got to go somewhere. We're just sharing the wealth. So yeah, they're trying to get this sped up. We'll see if that happens. And let me see here. Yeah, they do. Isn't that the truth? And $5,000 Visa cards. So anyhow, okay. So here in the last week, and this is starting to sway a couple of the Democrats. Okay, here in the last week, some journalist, independent journalist in Arizona, was down talking to people as they came across the border. And there was this tall Arab-looking guy, and so he was funny. He says, "What are you here for, the handouts?" And the guy says, "You will soon find out who I am and why I'm here." And you go, "Whoa!" And he says, "Oh, you're here for the entitlements, huh?" He says, "Oh no, I am much more important than that. You will soon find out who I am." That sounds like a terrorist to me. I don't know about you, but it does sound like one to me. I think that kind of opened a couple people's eyes, not very many, but a couple. So then we take a look at these tens of thousands of Chinese who are military-age men coming across without any, all by themselves, not as part of a family unit. And you say, what are they coming here for? So it looks like we could be setting up an October 7th inside our own country, based on some of these people who are coming in. Yes, so thousands of them, Holly, thousands of them are military age. Let me see. So, okay. So now let me share with you the Supreme Court order, because people are saying Texas has to take down its wire. Texas has to do this. Texas has to do that. That is not what it says. Okay. So present, share screen, miscellaneous order, January 22nd, 2024. So here we go. So share. Okay. Can you see it? There it is. I hope you all can see that. So, whoops, I hit remove instead of enlarge. I'm sorry. Video file. Come on, Lee. No, that's not what I want. I'm sorry. I wish I was far, far better at stop screen. We're going to stop that one. We're going to go back and do it all over again. Present, share screen. And I've got to stay on this so that I can read from it, because I want to read to you what it says. So what it says up here, order. So of course, at the very top, it says Supreme Court of the United States. And then it come down here and it says Monday, January 22nd, 2024, and order in pending case. So the order number, order list 601 US, order in pending case. That's the Texas versus Homeland Security. In this case, they're citing the Department of Homeland Security and others versus Texas. So case number 23A 607, Department of Homeland Security and others at Alia versus Texas. The application to vacate the injunction presented to Justice Alito and by him referred to the court is granted. So what does that mean? remember that the Fifth Circuit Court en banc said you are enjoined, an injunction. You cannot remove the razor wire that Texas has put up. Okay. So all the order says that the Supreme Court put out is that order saying that the federal government cannot take it down is hereby removed. The December 19th, 2023 order of the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, case number 23-50869, is vacated. So that means that order not to take down the wire is vacated. It doesn't exist. Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh would deny the application to vacate injunction. So basically, Texas doesn't have to do anything because the injunction was, federal government, you can't tear it down. Now the federal government can tear it down. That's all it means. So that's all that has happened, okay? So if you hear Texas has to do this or Texas has to do that, you can, and I'll put a link in the show notes after this is over this evening, and you can go to that court order and you can cite it and you can just show people who are saying Texas has to do something, they're wrong. That's all it says is that that the injunction for the federal government to remove the razor wire is hereby removed. Okay, so let me catch up here. Now, the next part is, and I don't know what the number is, okay? I have heard numbers from 7,000 to 700,000. So if you have heard some accurate numbers, I don't know. They're calling it the Army of God, but it's truckers with semis. And so since this decision by the Supreme Court on the 22nd of January, Governor Abbott, I ought to get that one. Let me see here. Let me see. Oh, come on, show less. Clear all. Governor Abbott letter. And so this is a fantastic letter Governor Abbott has put out. And so let me see if I can find it. I had it. It might be in an email from Governor Abbott, but I would encourage you to go read Governor Abbott letter. And I'm going to put in here January 23rd/24 to Biden and see if we can look it up that way. Okay, there we go. So let me read you the letter if CNN is going to let me do it. And no, of course, it's not going to have a link. I will also put in a link in the show notes to the letter that Governor Abbott did. I did do a reading of it here the other day, and so you can look up my reading of it. But anyhow, Governor Abbott says basically that because the federal government has abdicated its responsibilities to under Article 4, Section 4, Paragraph 3. So let me find my Constitution here. There it is. So I'll read you that. What Governor Abbott is saying about that Article 4, Section 4. Now remember, that's the one I told you has the only place where a form of government is mentioned in the U.S. Constitution, and it says that it has to give every state a Republican form of government. So Article 4, Section 4. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion. And on application of the legislature or the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. So basically what that says is the government has a responsibility, the federal government has a responsibility to protect Texas against this illegal immigrant invasion. So then he also quotes Article 1, Section 10, and so the last paragraph of Section 10, and it says, no state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty or tonnage, keep troops or ships in time of war or in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war, unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit to delay. So basically, under those two clauses of the Constitution, Governor Abbott declared the immigrant crisis an invasion. And under Article 1, Section 10, under Article 4, Section 4, says that now the federal government has a responsibility to protect us against that invasion. And if they won't do it, then we can go to Article 1, Section 10 that says if you don't do it, we have a right to. Okay, so that's what it's all about, is we just want to stop the people coming across the border. So that's where we are. And so since we had that, the decision to, on the 22nd, we had the Supreme Court decision. On the 23rd, Governor Abbott put his letter out to President Biden. On the 24th, President Biden told the state of Texas, you have 48 hours to cease and desist, or I will federalize your National Guard. Well, so the National Guard is under the control of the governor of that state until such time as they are federalized or nationalized. This means the same thing, okay? Somebody was getting their panties in a roll the other night because they didn't understand the difference between nationalizing and federalizing the National Guard. Well, they're both the same thing. It just means they're controlled by the president instead of the governor. But anyhow, so he said he was going to federalize them. That way they cannot be used to put up more wire, because the state of Texas would be ordering them to put the wire up. Well, since that happened, Florida and I believe Montana and Idaho have sent their National Guard down to help us. So all of a sudden you start taking a look at it and you say, wait a minute, Mr. President, if you want to ensure that the National Guard isn't putting up any more concertina wire, you're going to have to federalize or call to active duty every National Guard unit in the U.S., because it appears that more and more are coming to Texas in order to help put up more concertina wire. It also, I believe it's Montana, it could be North Dakota, but I believe it's Montana, is also sending some of their state troopers down and are going to put them under the control of the Texas Department of Public Safety state troopers. And so now we've got additional state police officers who are going to be in on this. Well, by the time Friday rolled around, Texas, along with 25 additional states, okay, that makes 26. So what is the majority of the states? 26 out of 50 is the majority. So the majority of U.S. states are siding with Texas, saying that the federal government is not doing its job and that they have an obligation to protect the border. If they won't protect the border, then these 26 states will protect the border. So now you've got more than half of the U.S. saying we're going to go down and shut the border off. Then you get this army, God's army, I believe, or something like that, the army of God. Somewhere between 7,000 and 700,000 semi-trucks are rolling down to Texas in order to put their trucks truck to trailer and form an artificial barrier to getting into the country from across the border. And, so the truckers are coming to our defense as well. That's not what you need to be concerned about. Thank you, truckers. We love you. We appreciate you. But I don't think you realize the significance of what you're doing is not necessarily your being at the border. The significance of what you're doing is You are the primary mover of all retail goods and manufacturing supplies to make the retail goods in the United States. So I don't know how many semis there are in the U.S., just over 1 million, I think. But anyhow, if you take, and let's take that larger number, if you think 700,000 semis on the border, instead of moving goods, milk, beer, flour, canned goods, toilet paper, whatever, from one place, from a place of manufacturing to a place of distribution to a place of sales, okay? Once that distribution system is disrupted, which is going to happen as a result of these truckers coming down to the border, then you're going to have more and more citizens upset. Question is, will they be upset at the truckers or will they be upset at the president? We don't know. We know that, and theoretically, if you're going to be a mayor of what, second or third largest city in the U.S., Chicago, you should have enough cognitive resonance to where you can say, if we stop these people from crossing the border, we wouldn't have this problem. Instead of, hey, Texas, once they cross the border illegally, you're shipping them up here to a sanctuary city, and you shouldn't be doing that because we're really not a sanctuary city. We really don't want them. But we are a sanctuary city. We want them when it's somebody else in power other than our party so that we can try to make them look bad. So that's kind of where we are. So that guy at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has an economy that's crashing, has a potential for civil conflict inside his own country due to decisions he has made, okay? And then we have the possibility of WAR. That was a good song, too. That was 1968. War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. But anyhow, that was, we've got the possibility of WAR happening in Korea. We've got it possibly happening in Taiwan, in the Middle East, several different countries in the Middle East, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Iran. Then we've got the possibility of an expansion of things going on up in Russia, Ukraine area, NATO getting involved. Finland is doing its defensive thing. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that's going on. So the world is a mess. But I wanted to kind of give you the constitutional aspect of what is going on in the decision-making process that should be going on, and how this whole thing about the lawsuit between Texas and the federal government, and between the federal government and Texas, and then going through the appellate court series, through the Fifth Circuit Court up to the Supreme Court, what that Supreme Court decision was, the vacation of the injunction is basically what it is. So, awful lot of stuff going on, isn't there? All I can say is prep up. Something is going to give. We don't know what. Something is going to give. Somebody's going to make a mistake. This is all on pins and needles. And when you have this many balls up in the air, when you have this many sharp objects flying around the balls up in the air, sooner or later, one of them explodes. And I don't want to predict what that will be, because I don't know. I just think there's way too many things going on. And I am not convinced that the White House has the cognitive ability to handle this many threats being thrown at them simultaneously and being able to handle those. So, Lee's personal opinion for what it's worth. Let's take a look at the what we've got going on here. It's just hard to believe that things have escalated to this point so quickly. I agree. Fiaxra says, yes, I don't think they were prepared for that. Florida is, yes, Governor DeSantis is fantastic. You know, I would love to see Governor DeSantis as the vice presidential running mate with President Trump. And the reason I would like to say that is because that would give him a definite shoe-in for the presidency in 2028, because it seems as if the vice president has a little bit of a voting advantage. I think if he could prove himself, if he can do as well on the national level as he has done on the state level, I think that he would be fantastic. Now, another one that's coming in as a result of everything's here. We had Rick Perry ran for president against Trump back in 2016, and so he's out of it. I think he's given up on it totally. However, Greg Abbott, watch out. I'm not 100% a Greg Abbott fan, but I will tell you that his handling of the border crisis has given him some points in my opinion. So it's where we are. Let me see. Yes, he is. He is there on a manufacturing discussion. We've got a lot of stuff going on here in the United States, and we have become the new Silicon Valley basically for manufacturing. A lot of the high-tech stuff is moving here to the greater Austin area. They're calling us the Silicon Hills now. And so, Dell started here. We've got Motorola, 3M, IBM. IBM has a humongous complex. We've got a lot of chip manufacturers. We've got Tesla down in southeast Austin. They're building another factory so that they can build more cars. And then up in Georgetown, they've got GAF, and they're making solar panels up there. So there's an awful lot of stuff going on here. But why is he there? He is there, I think, my opinion, to try to shift some of the manufacturing away from China and towards India. Now, here's another complicated one, okay? We had India. No, who was it? It was Pakistan and Iran. Pakistan and Iran have a common border, and they were lobbing at each other, shooting each other, okay? And so when that happened, India, who doesn't like Pakistan, but also doesn't like Iran, sided with Iran against Pakistan because, I think the theory there is that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so what they're doing is they're aligning with Iran against Pakistan. That's another one of those areas that has a potential to blow up. But I think that one of the things that Governor Abbott wants to try to do is shift some of that manufacturing away from China and into India and build them into a stronger ally. Although, that's not really, he doesn't have any purview to do that. That would be the federal government that should do that. So I think what we're doing is, what kind of partnerships can Texas and India have as far as, conglomerations, maybe even building factories in Texas or Texas building in India or whatever. But that I think that's all manufacturing that they're doing there. Devil Dog Prepper, good evening. Welcome. Oh, I'm sorry. I do hope you feel better here in the very near future. So let me see here where we are. Triple G says he thinks Abbott is in India last week, but must be back as Hannity is supposed to interview him tonight. But suppose he could do that from India. Yeah, he could. I don't know where he is. But let me see. Okay, so Mohsen Samadov leads the Azerbaijan Islamic Party. They have close ties to Hezbollah. He was jailed for 12 plus years on charges of attempts to organize terror attacks and overthrow the government. I believe that's who they are saying through some casual identification. That's the guy I was talking about that was on the border in Arizona that said, "Soon you will know who I am." And I am much more important than that, than the casual person coming across the border. So thank you, Sumi. So that is, I haven't heard any concrete, anybody coming across saying 100%, government wise, but there's an awful lot of other speculation that that's who it is. and supposedly through facial recognition and comparative pictures and things like that. So I have no reason to believe that it's not, but I just can't say one definitively that it is, if that makes sense. I think it would be wise for us to act as if it is, to acknowledge the fact that we let one of probably the biggest terrorists internationally, and also an international arms seller, into the United States. And he was interviewed, gosh. Hello, Shenanigans. Welcome. So let me see. Anything else? Okay, so that's basically where we are. Does anybody have any questions or anything about the Constitution and the constitutionality of all this poo-poo that is taking place? It's just crazy. Next week, what we're going to start talking about is the states and how the states make laws. And that's kind of in line with what we're doing with the federal government. So we finished the Constitution, and we're going to talk about how to make laws starting next week. Tomorrow night, we're going to wrap up our book on Grid Down. It's going to be an open discussion, basically. There are some questions at the end that, basically some thought exercises and conclusions. We'll get into that. I have changed the description down below, and there is a link where you can buy the book that will start in 2 weeks, which is Food Storage for Preppers. Look at all these bookmarks and tabs and everything I've already got going on this phenomenal book. We're going to do the introduction and the first 4 chapters a week from tomorrow. And the reason we're going to do the first 4 chapters is because they all talk about how to preserve the food that you have. So, each chapter is a different way. Very short chapters. We should be able to get all 5 of those chapters done in 1 hour. And then I've got it marked out up through the end of March, if I'm not mistaken. So I've got February and March indicated, doing about an average of 4 chapters a week out of this book. So that's what we'll be doing on our Tuesday night nonfiction. And then, of course, we've got the newest book 12 of Angry American, Americans books, which is, I believe, Engineering Home, is going to be our fiction book that we're going to discuss at the last of the month. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Did you notice in the comments that after we did our Thursday night book club review of the best book of 2023, in my opinion, Blue Dawn, although it's just not that prepper related, so I'm not going to continue on with that series as far as doing them here on this channel, but it was the best book I read in 2023 of the fiction genre. But we did get a comment from the author, Blaine Pardoe. Thank you for reviewing my book. So I was very happy that, I guess somehow or other he found out that I was doing it, and he caught either the show or the rerun and made a comment. So thank you, Mr. Pardoe, for visiting us and for leaving that comment. I'm honored that you would visit our site, visit our channel. So I agree. People when in religion, people get very set and very defensive, I guess would be a good way to do it. I have a sister-in-law, and she is a fundamentalist Baptist, and I can't tell you how often I hear things that are false. Catholics pray to statues. Catholics don't read the Bible. Catholics do this. Catholics do that, and these people don't have any idea what they're talking about. So the one thing, we had a discussion in church. After church, we have a group that gets together and meets for 2 hours, and we talk about the Bible. We talk about history. We talk about a lot of different things. So yesterday, the question was, what do we do about a lot of the things that go on YouTube and different things like that? And I said, I like YouTube because I can sit my sister-in-law down and go through the Mass with her and explain, show her in the Old Testament and the New Testament where each part of the Mass comes from. I can allow her to watch and see that we don't pray to statues, and it gives her the opportunity, because I know I would never get her into a mass. And she would never go in. Plus, we believe it to be extremely holy. So, that I wouldn't be able to explain things to her as it's going on, because we don't talk inside the church. So, I just think there's some great things going on, and we have fundamentalists in everything. Fundamentalist believers, Catholics, Jews, Mormons, Muslims, and it's too bad that we can't just all get along. So our doctrine, what the Catholic Church says, is that we are all children of God, and everybody is to be respected. Every life is to be respected, and we are to pray for everybody to go to heaven. As a matter of fact, one of the prayers that we say is Omi Jesu dimite nobis, debita nostris, ne nos inducas no, that's the Lord's Prayer. Let me see. Oh my Jesus, forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell, salve nos ad igne inferno, and lead perduc in caelum omnes animas, lead all souls to heaven. Praesertem eos, especially those que misericordiae tua maxima indigent, who are most deserving of your mercy. Yeah, I'm so old that I still do things in Latin, even though that Latin was done away with in 1970. Well, it was allowed to be done away with in 1970 by the church. So, but going to Catholic schools, we did everything in Latin, so I still kind of do that. So anyhow, Miko Wolf, good to see you. Welcome. I have not seen that name before. Absolutely. Carry your Constitution with you wherever you go. At least have it on your cell phone. Know where you can get it. Okay, so South Florida DCL says, has a question. If Joe Biden declares martial law and none of the National Guard goes along with it, what next? So here's something I want you to consider, okay? Texas is the size of France, slightly larger than the country of France. We have, I believe, between Marines and Army, to include all of the National Guard and all of the reserves, 29 divisions, okay? The Germans used 110 divisions to try to enact martial law in France, and never had more than 80% of the country occupied, and never had complete 100% control over the country. The what do they call themselves? The underground was doing devastating harm to the German army. So if they had 2.5 to 3 times the number of military as to what the United States has now, and the United States were to enact martial law, they would have to be very selective in where they did that martial law. Maybe Houston, maybe Dallas, maybe San Antonio. But to say that you're going to have martial law over the entire state of Texas, they don't even have what the Nazis had to declare martial law over France. So that's going to be very difficult, let alone declaring martial law over the entire country. That's going to be impossible. The vast majority of sheriffs who are elected would not go along with that. I would say that at least in 26 states, the state police would not go along with that. We have here in Texas, most people don't realize it, but here in Texas, we have a state guard. I was in an MP company when I was going to college back in 1970, 70, and 71 in El Paso. But we have 4 brigades of state guard, and they are designed after MPs and engineers. So they do a lot of disaster work and a lot of riot control stuff. So the 4 brigades is 1 brigade larger than the 36th Infantry Division, which is the National Guard for the state of Texas. So the National Guard has 3 brigades, and the State Guard has 4 brigades. So right there, we've already outnumbered the National Guard, which is the Texas State Guard. So it's very complicated. I don't think martial law will be declared, except in very limited areas. The last time I recall martial law being declared had some very bad taste in its mouth, and that was after Hurricane Rita down in New Orleans. And remember that there were people who were confiscating weapons illegally and doing things. So there was a lot of bad taste as a result of that martial law because people exceeded their authority. I don't think that's going to happen again. I really don't. I think I have ADD as well, Shenanigans, so I can empathize with you there. Even sometimes on some of these videos, even some of mine, once I hit that 10-minute mark, I'm kind of, let me go somewhere else for a couple minutes and I'll come back to you. So I understand. I can empathize with you because I believe I suffer the same thing. I need to talk to my doctor about that. Let me see. There is a trucker convoy. We just don't know how many trucks. I'm not sure how many trucks there are. I've heard anywhere between 7,000 and 700,000. And that's what I was talking about earlier. The financial impact that that's going to have is going to be more influential by the fact that they're not conveying products back and forth from manufacturers to distribution to retail. That's going to have more of an impact on the people in the United States than will the fact that they're present on the border trying to stop the migration. I'm not even sure of that. There was a discussion on New York Preppers channel night before last, or 3 nights ago. And the question was about, and they said, well, if you don't follow orders, nothing's going to happen because you can say that they were unconstitutional. Well, that's not correct. The oath says, I do solemnly swear that I'll support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's part one. Part two, I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed over me in accordance with the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. So you got two things you're swearing to: defend, support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and obey the orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed over him. So we've got two different things here that can happen. Number one, and we can go back to discuss Hurricane Rita at the same time because some things happen there that are questionable. So number one, you give me an order and I say, I'm not going to follow that order because it's unconstitutional. If we are in combat, my commander can shoot me at that point for failure to complete a direct order. Okay. Now he will have to justify that. There'll be an investigation. If they find out that he shot me after I refused to obey an unlawful order, then he is going to be liable, but I'm going to be dead. So if you refuse an order, you will be court-martialed, if not shot. And then at the court-martial, after you've spent 90 days in jail waiting for the court-martial to happen, then you have the opportunity to say, I refused it because it's unconstitutional, and here's why I believe that. Okay, so you're going to be arrested. You're going to be tried, and the place where you say it's unconstitutional is when you get to jail, right? When you get to court. Now, the opposite of that, okay, is, and this is basically what we did at the Nuremberg trials to all the general officers in the Wehrmacht and in the SS, is you as a soldier obey an order, even though it is an illegal order. So you tell me to do something and I know morally, legally, it's wrong. I should not do it. Okay, but I do it anyway. I also have to pay the price of that. So I should have refused that order. So there's two sides to this question. Number one is refusing to obey an unlawful order. And then the second one is refusing to do an unlawful order, if that makes sense. Okay. So there's two different sides to that coin. Very complicated issue. Don't try it in combat because you may not like the result of that. So one of the things we have to remember is what the North and who won the war call it is a civil war. We call it the War of Northern Aggression. So a civil conflict is that one side, an insurrection, is trying to take over the government of the other side and impose their will on that side. But if you take a look at what happened in 1860, 1861, the South never did go north and say, we're going to force you to do our form of government. What they said was, we're going to pick up our baseball bat and our glove and we're going to go home. We're not going to play this game anymore. So you guys can play your game with your government. We're going to go home and play our game with our government. Okay. So there was no attempt to overtake the Northern government. The North, however, decided they didn't like them going home and taking their bat and glove and going home and not playing the game. So they invaded the South to force them to come back into the North. So there was no revolution. There was no, quote, civil war. What it was one side said, I'm going home, and the other side said, no, you're not. That's the crux of it. If there would be anything like that again, a secession. Now remember, it was not illegal to secede from the United States. Although the Supreme Court in 1869 came out with a ruling that made it illegal to secede from the United States. So yes, when Texas rejoined in 1865, they were given the right to secede at any time. However, that was overruled by the 1869 Supreme Court ruling. So it is illegal to secede from the United States. I don't know how they'd enforce it. Maybe another war. I don't know. But that's just where we are with that. 26 states versus 24. Not looking good. Not looking good. So let me see where we are here. Sumi says she remembers New Orleans. That was not a good thing at all. No, it wasn't. And so the one from San Bernardino to DC, that's another convoy. Okay, so I guess that's where we are. So next week, we're going to talk about the rulemaking, lawmaking, things that go on. And then on Tuesday night next week, we'll start the new book, Food Storage for Preppers. And tomorrow night, we're going to finish up this book. I will continue on with my daily prepper tips and my daily recipes. Today, I did chili mac, one of my favorite things. Let me tell you, my kudos to the Army cooks. I know that you're going to hear a lot of complaints about Army cooks. I will tell you, I was single for half of my career in the Army, and I ate in the mess hall. And they do, those guys are working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And so you got to give them a little bit of a break. Yeah, they get tired. They get cranky. You would too under those conditions. And but Thanksgiving meal, there is nowhere on earth I would rather be for Thanksgiving than in a mess hall, because those cooks do the bang up job like you would not believe, trying to remember, most of the soldiers are away from home, and Thanksgiving is one of those home holidays. And so they do everything in their power to try to make it as good an event as possible. And they do the best job in the world. So that's number one. Number two, there is no better biscuits and gravy than what the Army makes. Okay. I love biscuits and gravy, especially when they mermaid it out to us in the field. And if you're out in the field in Germany and it's, 0 degrees Fahrenheit and you're up to your ankles or knees in ice and snow, and you've got a mermaid can of biscuits and hot gravy, hot sausage gravy. Oh my gosh, is that a morale boost? So they do a really good job with that. The third thing is, man, nobody makes chili mac better than the Army. And I love their chili mac. You guys, cooks, you do a great job with that. Thank you. I love it. And when I was doing my research to do the video that I put out today on chili mac, I found out that the chili mac MRE is the #1 rated MRE. So even as far as carrying that over into the MRE. So thank you to the Army cooks. I appreciate you guys. I know that you don't get enough credit, but this guy, and I was a mess officer, so I know what you go through. So I appreciate you, and I thank you for your service. Okay, so that's pretty much it, everybody. Scott says Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska. So we did Operation Jack Frost, and we went up to Elmendorf. They said, get all your equipment inside the hangar. And we left a 3 kW generator out on the paddock right outside of the hangar. We weren't able to get it inside. When we got up the next morning, one of the generators, the oil in it had frozen and basically cracked the crankcase because the oil froze at Elmendorf on the tarmac. Unbelievable. It gets cold there, people. Colder than Germany. You're absolutely right, Mika. And it was basically over states' rights and equality under that. So basically, the conditions that were there in 1860, 1861, excuse me, I had popcorn earlier and it's starting to come up. The very same constitutional questions that existed in 1860, 1861 are the exact same constitutional questions we're seeing today, and that is states' rights, 10th Amendment especially, versus the federal government. And so I think that's where we are. And I don't know, something's got to give. I hope nothing bad happens. I think nothing bad happens. Okay. Book of Numbers. I found out something interesting in my Bible study yesterday, if you're interested. Moshe Dayan, who was the defense minister of Israel, later became prime minister. Moshe is the actual name of Moses. So in Hebrew, Moses is Moshe, and it means draw forth or to draw from. And so, of course, they drew him from the papyrus reeds in the marshes and to become basically an adopted child of Pharaoh. But then he also drew forth the Israelis from Egypt into the Sinai. So Moshe is the Hebrew way of saying Moses, and it means to draw forth. So in his book of Numbers, this is book of Moses, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. I say, the Lord look upon us kindly and grant the world peace. We need peace. We need to find a way where we can all just kind of get together. Maybe Rodney King was right about that. Why can't we just all get along? Okay, remember that we're all in this together, so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. See you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.